Once you've got your plan in place, your strategy implemented, an assessment or an evaluation design set up, you can go ahead and call yourself a teacher researcher. It may not feel like you're a researcher yet, but you're doing all of the steps of being a researcher, so you might as well call yourself one. Here are some of the concerns that you might have about being a researcher in the classroom. I don't have a laboratory. Plenty of research takes place without the confines of a formal research lab. I've only maybe twice in my life done research in a laboratory. Usually my laboratory is a natural environment, such as a classroom. But my research only matters to me. It's only designed to help me improve my teaching. These are excellent motivations to do research. Most of the best research that you read is designed by somebody who is trying to answer problems that matter to them, and it just so happens that the problems aren't unique to them. They're problems that are more generalizable to a lot of people in a lot of circumstances. Yes, your classroom will not be identical to my classroom, but there are probably some features, even in an elementary school classroom, that will help me learn about the psychology of human behavior that might influence my practices in a college classroom, specifically with respect to a topic like developmental psychology. These are legitimate foundations for conducting serious research, not drawbacks. But I already have a relationship with my students. Won't that bias the results? Again, researchers conduct studies on things that matter to them, such as parents who want to learn more about raising children might conduct research with children, not necessarily their children, but children in general. And they're doing so for biased reasons. They have the interest level, the motivation that will sustain their focus and their attention. These things make for excellent research, not bad research. And we've already mentioned in a previous video how to avoid some of those biases or be attentive to the possibility of biases. So that, yes, bias is a concern, but there are ways to avoid it or minimize the effect. But my study is too small. It's just one classroom, or it's just a couple classrooms. Who cares? More impressive studies have been done with fewer people than you think. Some of the most substantial and significant findings in psychology took place with one individual. So like a sample size of one. You're going to have a bigger sample size than that, likely, unless you do a case study, which would be a method that you could choose. So you can call yourself a researcher. What you'll need to get started, this is real simple. You'll need a method. These will be the steps you follow in conducting your research. A research question, this is probably already been identified, but I'll go into detail in a second, and a plan for what to do. So the methodology is simply the steps you'll follow in order to test your intervention strategy. A methodology will identify what kind of evidence you collect, how you collect it, how you analyze it, and what sorts of conclusions that you can draw. A methodology is super important because it helps guarantee that you're following a predetermined path to answer certain types of questions. So methodologies have not only been designed by people, but they've also been tested, and there's like social validity surrounding the use of those methodologies. So if you use one of these and you follow the steps and you're transparent about how you followed them, all of this lends credence to the results. If instead you invent your own method, people are going to want to know why you didn't use an established method, why you made every decision along the way. Wait, why'd you interview 5 students and not 10? Like, what's your reasoning behind that? And you'll need to have reasons. A methodology comes with all of those reasons. So it's like a huge shortcut. It cuts out a lot of additional work that you don't have to do. All of that said, I like to design my own methods because I find existing methods a little too restrictive. So you can read about, I think I've got papers on 3 different like hybrid methods that I've designed. You can take a look at those if you're interested, but I recommend just finding an established method and following it. Benefit from the work others have already done. All right, your research question. This is what's guiding your intervention strategy, which is usually the problem you're trying to solve, or it's just a curiosity about what works best. So, for example, I've had students talk about the lack of parent involvement in elementary school, and so just a question that I would have is like, does parent involvement, so like parents showing up for a parent night, or parents like signing schoolwork or working with their kids, having a relationship with a teacher, does parent involvement improve, I don't know, student completion of homework? Like that would just be an outcome that you could measure. It's a way of saying that parent involvement is helpful, and the measure of that is students complete a greater percentage of homework, or a greater percentage of students complete homework. So this would be a question that pretty much predicts what sort of data you're going to collect and what variables you're going to manipulate. This would be useful as a quantitative research question, so you could collect numerical data and then perform a statistical analysis, and that would just be, in this example, a basic calculation of averages, but you're using numbers there. So a qualitative evaluation wouldn't have like outcome data like this, numerical outcome data that you could analyze statistically, but you might ask a question like, so with parent involvement, how does parent involvement improve student morale or student engagement? And so you would actually have to watch, maybe you would watch how students behave on one day, and then on another day when parents come in, how does student engagement change? So you'd be comparing two observations, looking for differences, or maybe you would interview students, the kids, about having their parents come in or parents that didn't come in. And so there are ways of asking these open-ended questions. So a how sort of question would be a qualitative question. Why or what would be more of a quantitative question. Both of them can be legitimate ways of conducting research. All right, the plan you'll follow, so that was part 3, is what you've already been doing all along, so we can skip that. And the stages you can expect to go through. Once you have your research question and your methodology in place, you will collect your data. There will be the surprise, perhaps throughout the process. You might think, oh, wait a minute, I defined these variables like parent involvement, but what really qualifies as parent involvement? Do emails count? What about FaceTime or Zoom? Like, is that really involvement? Is there differences? So you go back, just including this in there, you go back and look at how parent involvement was really defined. And if it was more than 10 years ago, chances are the way that parent involvement has been defined in the literature is irrelevant today because so much has changed. So now you might look at the new Gen Z or even Gen Alpha learning environments and what engagement really means with the social technology and classroom changes. You might find like a new empty spot in the research. You might need to do some basic research to help fill that in. Anyway, it's helpful to go back and forth between the data collection analysis and existing research, and go back and forth and see how what you've read before is going to look differently once you've started the process of conducting research. It's really helpful to have a more in-depth reading once you have the background experience. Anyway, you collect your data, you analyze the data, you keep kind of refreshing and looking at it from different perspectives based on existing research. If you want, you can report the results, but ultimately you're going to use the data analysis to make a change. If your parent involvement strategy was effective, or you have evidence that suggests that good things are happening, well, now you're going to want to improve parent involvement. So you move on to the next question. How can we get more parents involved? How can we get more teachers involved with getting parents involved? How can we get students the kids to improve all of those steps of the process. So now you've started the process over again. You're going to come up with a new research question, like I just did there, come up with a new intervention strategy, organize a new study, and it just keeps going around and around. And pretty soon, you'll find you've done like 8 of these cycles, and you've developed like a deep expertise in your topic. And it doesn't feel like you've developed the expertise because you've just been working on your classroom and improving things. But since you've been involved with like going back and forth between your research and the literature and the research and the literature, pretty soon you know more about your topic than anybody that you've read about. And now you're the regional expert. And so I think I've mentioned that in previous slides or previous videos. You can build a career around this if it's something that you enjoy, and you may be surprised how quickly it takes off because not many people have the the wherewithal, I guess. I don't really like that word. The commitment, that's what I'm looking for. Don't have the commitment to stick with research at this level. It's so much easier to just kind of go with whatever makes the most sense and then just assume that it's working without actually assessing whether it's working. It's so much extra work to do all that. But if you get in the habit of doing it, it'll become a natural part of your teaching process. And then before you know it, you'll be involved in, you'll be the leading researcher in 5 states on your topic of interest.